Welcome to Technically Speaking, where we help you increase your income through tech. Welcome back to another lesson, guys. And today we will be configuring VLANs and inter-VLAN communication, right? A VLAN, we kind of talked about that earlier, but just to go over, a VLAN is a virtual local area network, right? It's just a way to break down a larger network into smaller isolated sections. And you could think of this as like a school, because a school has different groups like classrooms, cafeteria, even the library is a different group. Okay. And they all exist in the same building, but they function independently. And a VLAN works just like that, right? A big network, and we're just creating small groups. Okay, so in order for these small groups to talk to each other, these VLANs, we have to configure inter-switch connectivity, inter-VLAN connectivity. Okay, so let's go ahead and do just that. So the first things first is your topology. Let's get a topology together. Now, in a topology, all you need is a router. Let's just pick any router here. And let's make this a little bigger. So we have a router, so we can talk between different networks. Let's go ahead and get a switch. I'm just gonna choose this switch. I'm not gonna get too picky. A switch, and the switch, what's it do? It's going to forward traffic between devices that's on the same network. And then we're going to get some devices. Let's do PC, PC. Let's do laptop, laptop. Okay, boom. Now let's give a connection to these devices, a wired connection. Okay, I suggest you understand the different copper Ethernet cables, crossover, straight through, and patch panel. I think those are really good ones to understand what device, what cable you need and to connect to what device. So let's go over here. Boom. So this is all connected. I like to kind of draw out everything. So I'm going to put a circle here and I'm going to put a circle here. All right. And let's exit out. Oops. And let's put VLAN 10 equals sales. Let's just say that's sales. Okay. And then let's come over here. Let's do VLAN 20. And let's say it's HR, right? Because we don't want sales and HR to get the same message, but we do want them to communicate between each other. Okay. Now, I do want to put like a little note here so we understand what's going on. We have our network address. So for VLAN 10, which is sales, right? Our network address is going to be 192.168.10.0, okay? And it's gonna have a /24 to it. And then our VLAN 20, which equals HR, let's do a 192.168.20.0/24, okay? These are our network addresses, just so we have an understanding and a reference as we start to configure, okay? So we set up our topology, we're good to go, that's great. Now what we may have to do is set up, let's just go ahead and do that. Let's set up our IP addresses for our end devices. Now, in a big environment, what you would do is have a DHCP server, and this server will automatically assign IP addresses to the end devices as they connect via their Ethernet connection. But we're not in that type of environment. We're in our small own lab environment. So even if it's not a lab environment, if it's just like a small network, you would manually add in the IP address to every single device, okay? We only have 4 devices, so we just have to manually add IP addresses to these 4 devices. So let's go in. So in here, we're gonna go into our desktop, we're gonna go into IP configuration, and let's manually set the IP address, okay? So it's gonna be 192.16, what did I say, 168? Let me move it over so I know. Okay, yeah, 168. 192.168. This is in PC0. So that's in VLAN 10. So we're going to put 10 right here. And let's give it a .2, right? Instead of a .1. And I'll tell you for our default gateway. Now, really quick, static is selected as you see here. That means that I'm not using DHCP, I'm using a manual configuration. And we have our IP4 address and our subnet. Our subnet automatically was added, which is a /24. The computer is going to read it. When you have, well, I'm not going to go too much into IP classes, but we talked about IP classes, and this is why it automatically gave you that. Default gateway, that's something that you must add in order to communicate outside of your VLAN, outside of your local network. Okay, our VLAN address, our default gateway address for this VLAN is going to be 192.168.10, and let's give it a .1, right? So we have .0 is the network, .1 is the way out of our network, .2 is end device, a host, .3 will be a host, .4 we can keep going all the way up until 254. Because 255 is broadcast, I believe. DNS server, we're not there yet. We're not trying to resolve any domain names, so we don't need to add any of this, okay? We're going to do the same thing to the other device on this same network. So that's PC1. So we go into desktop, IP configuration. It's static. What's the IP address? 192.168.10.3, because we already used 0, we used 1, and we used 2. Here's 3. It already added the subnet mask for us, and we're going to add the same default gateway as we added to PC0, which is 192.168.10.1. All right, boom, done. Rinse and repeat for laptop 0, but we have to keep it in this same schema, okay? So let's go to desktop, IP configuration, make sure it's static, all right? So IP 168, let me move that. It's gonna be .20, okay? .2 is what we're gonna give it. Subnet mask, good and gravy. Now, default gateway, the default gateway is gonna be 192.168.20.1, okay? Like I said, the 0 is the network. Number .1 is the way out of your network, your default gateway address. .3, .2 and .3 will be our host, our computers. All right, so let's do that. And then let's just rinse and repeat for this one here. We got 192.168.20.3. It's going to automatically give that to us. And then we're changing our gateway to 68.20. Let me move that for you. .1. Nice. Now our end devices have a way outside of its own network to talk to other networks. And it has an IP address, basically that mailing address to say, hey, I can talk across networks. Boom, we're good. The next thing we need to do is go on the switch and create these VLANs and assign them to these ports. Okay, so let's go into the switch. Let's go into the CLI. Now let me just make this here, just to make it so we can see everything. Hopefully. Can you guys still see? Hopefully you can. I tried to do it, but you see how it's just making it much bigger? What if I take this? Can I move this over? Oh yeah, I can move this over. Duh. Okay, now we're good to go. Let's go into the switch. Now the switch already has activity going on. I'll save this for another lesson on what all this stuff means. But what you really need to pay attention to is this stuff right here, which is called system logging, syslogs. And they're just giving you information. And it's good to understand the numbers and these syslogs, which again, we'll go over, but just right now we have link 5 change. 5 means informational. That's an informational number. Link is telling you link happened. It may even say link protocol. And then it'll say that it's chain, right? Or it went from up down state. As you see, it changed to up, fast Ethernet. Again, we'll go over this a little bit more, but this is something that you will see because activity has been already happening as we connect it to the switch. So we're just gonna enter. All right, so now we have to get into enable mode. You can put enable. I like to put en, but just for sakes, let's go ahead and do enable. We have to go into the configuration terminal. So shorthand, I like to do conft, but you can literally type out configuration space terminal. I'm not going to do all that. So we're in the configuration terminal. What do we want to configure? We want to configure VLANs. How do we do that? Literally say VLAN, spell it right, and put the number. The number is arbitrary. You can say VLAN 10,000, right? Well, you can say there's VLANs, they have certain numbers that you can assign. We went over it in our last lesson. So obviously one is taken. There's just certain VLANs that are taken, standard VLANs, extended VLANs. Let's just keep it between, I like to keep it in the schema like 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 type ordeal. But you can also do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up. But again, we're creating VLAN 10. Let's not get too deep. Now we're in the configuration terminal of the VLAN. So what do we want to do with this VLAN 10? Because it's already been created. Let's name it. We're going to name it sales. Boom, we're done. Let's say exit. We're still in a configuration terminal, but we're not in that VLAN configuration terminal. Let's configure another VLAN. Let's do VLAN 20, right? What do we want to do with VLAN 20? Let's name it HR. Great, name it HR. Then let's go ahead and exit. All right, now we created the VLANs, but the VLANs are not assigned to any port on this switch, right? It's just exist and as a VLAN, but it's not assigned to anything. So let's assign it. Now we have, come over here, we could just hover, that's FA0/1, and this FA0/2 for VLAN 10. That's the interface. It's fast Ethernet, and the interface number 0102. So let's go into interface. INT is what I like, but you can always do interface as the, correct. So interface FA, fast Ethernet, 0/1, enter. And I spelled interface wrong. So let's go ENT-ER. There we go. Now we're in the configuration terminal of the interface, okay? So in this interface, what do I want to do? I want to say, make this, as you can see, spelling is not my best thing. We're going to make this switch port mode as an access, right? Access what? So switch port access VLAN 10. Boom, good. Exit. Okay. Now let's go into interface FA0/2. Same thing. You can actually press the up key, switch port mode access, enter. You can press the up key again, switch port access VLAN 10, right? Right. All right, good to go. Exit. Ooh, exit. Now, as you can see over here in our topology, spanning tree is like, whoa, you made some changes. And so it has to renegotiate and do some things to ensure that the link is up and up, all right? And down here is the time. You can always fast forward it. So look, now, okay? We don't have to wait on spanning tree to elect the path, the best path. All right. What we did over to VLAN 10, how we assigned it to the ports, we got to do the same thing to VLAN 20, assign it to the ports, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and we're in the configuration terminal. Let's do really quick. Let's just make sure FA03 and FA04. All right, good to go. FA0/3. Let me move this out the way. We're in that interface. What do we want to do? We want to do switch port. Make sure you spell stuff right. Mode access, yes. Switch port access, VLAN 20, I believe. Yes. Boom, 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 boom. Exit. And then you can say interface FA0/4. And we're going to do switch port mode access. Okay. We're going to do switch port access VLAN 20. Yay. Okay. So now we have added our VLANs and assigned our VLANs, okay? And if you ever wanted to verify that, what you did was good, then we come here. You can say exit out of configuration because we're not configuring. We just want to verify. So we can do a simple one like show VLAN brief. And as you can see, look, we created sales, we created HR, VLAN ID is 10, VLAN ID is 20. It is active and they're on these ports. So you can verify, oh, we're good to go. Okay, we've done that. Now the next step is to configure a trunk port between the switch and the router. The trunk port allows multiple VLANs to traverse over this network. So again, we can do inter-VLAN routing, all right? So with that, in the switch, we're gonna go back into the configuration terminal, okay? And we're going to take a look at what this link is. It is FA0/5. So let's go ahead and say interface FA0/5. All right, now we're in that interface and we're gonna say, let's make this switch port mode into a trunk, okay? And then this switch port mode, actually switch port trunk, I believe, allow VLAN 10 and 20. All right. The switch port's this spelling's gonna eat me alive. But as you can see, there's a lot of fat fingering that's going on. And the best thing for you to do, especially if you're doing this a lot, or you haven't done it and now you have to do it again, is to copy and paste these commands into like Notepad++ or Notepad. So you can, be able to copy and paste these commands in and out. All right. And then I believe you can. Some switches already have that encapsulation .1Q protocol already there, but you can configure it on multiple switches, right? Some switches that don't already have it. But we can check right here, encap.1Q. You can do that, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's already a protocol that's on the switch. So let's exit out of configuration terminal, and we can say show interfaces or interface. I'm going to say show interfaces. Wrong. Let's do that. They didn't give me anything. So let's do show interface. Wrong. And it's not giving me too much. However, what we next need to do is ensure that the router is up and on and this link turns green so we actually can utilize this trunk port that we created. Okay, so let's go in to the router, CLI. We're not going to go through any configuration. It's the same thing on the switch as far as the configuration terminal. Okay, what is this interface? This is gigabit 0/0/0. So you would say interface G 0/0/0, right? And say no shutdown. Boom. Now it's up. Okay. So we're in that configuration interface. What do we want to do? Since we made it up, we want to ensure that these VLANs can traverse over this line. So what do we have to do? Create a sub interface. So let's exit. Let's go into interface 0/0/0. In order to do a sub interface, you have to have a dot on the interface because again, sub interface is a virtual instance. So let's do VLAN 10, a sub interface for each VLAN. So let's start with 10. Okay, now we're in that sub interface, as you can see. We can do, let's try to do encap.1Q here. Okay, and then let's add an IP address to this sub interface, which will be the default gateway that we added to our devices. Again, it's a way out of our network to talk to other networks. So we got 192.168.10.1. We always got to add a subnet mask, so 255.255.255.0, and we're good to go with that. We have to do the same exact thing for VLAN 20. So create a sub interface. We're going to do interface G0/0/0.20. Okay, we want to keep it the same schema. We want to keep it kind of standardized across systems. It could be whatever. It could be .15 if you want, but it doesn't make sense when it's times to troubleshoot and you're like, what? Sub interface .15? How does that correlate with VLAN 20, right? So let's just keep going. As you can see, line up. We're in the sub interface. Let's go ahead and encap.1q20. All right. And then let's add that IP address. Make sure I spelled that right, because I don't know. Spelling is not my friend today. So what was that? .20.1. Always add a sub interface. Excuse me, a subnet mask. 255.255.255.0. What is that? /0. Exactly. All right. So we did all that. We gave it a sub interface. We made it up and up so everything is green. And let's take a look at the pings. Okay. So we're going to go to PC0. Let's go into the command prompt. And you could do this on your own computer as far as going into the command prompt and pinging connectivity to certain servers or certain computers that you want to see if you have connection. So we're going to do PING, ping. Okay, it's like an echo. And you utilize the IP address. Let's ping an IP address. Who do we want to ping? Let's ping HR because we're in sales. So HR 992.168.20.2. Enter. All right, so let's take a look what happens. All right, so as you can see, it request out, it couldn't find it at first, and then it started to connect just beautifully. What does that mean? So what happens with the computer when it sends out this ping, what happens is it uses one of its packets to do an ARP request. And this ARP request is saying, hey, I have this MAC address and I'm trying to find this IP, so I'm trying to match the MAC with the IP and vice versa. And so it uses one of the packets to do that. And then once it finds it, once it says, hey, that's my IP, here's my MAC, here's my IP, here you go. It creates that packet and then it can successfully ping. So as you can see, it has a 20%, 25% loss because it had to use one of those to ping it, but everything else was good. If we do it again, it doesn't need that ARP request. It'll give us all 4 packets successfully. And as you can see, 0 packets lost. So sales can talk to HR. Do you want to see if HR can talk to sales? Which, it's a reply, so it can't talk to sales. But let's just say for troubleshooting, ping, what are we? We are laptop 1, we're HR. Let's talk to sales. And sales is 192.168.10.3, right? Enter. Now, have they talked before? No. So what do you think is going to happen? You're going to have to do an ARP request. And as you can see here, I can go up, run it again. And as you can see, no packet was lost. All right. Just for shits and giggles, we can add a PC2 to this. Okay. And give it a link. Okay. And then let me just exit out of these so I don't get confused. And then in PC, we can do config desktop IP. Let's give it an IP address, 192.168. Let's say it's in it's part of sales, but they're working in a different area, different whatever, So we're going to do a 10.4. All right. And let's say that they have a default gateway, the same as well. It's 168.10.1. Okay. So they got their IP, they're way out the network. They're just not in a VLAN. They're not associated to a VLAN. So let's see if it will be good for them. Programming, let's exit out of this. Let's do command prompt. Let's ping. They want to talk to someone in sales too. They're like, hey, sales friend, what's up? So let's do 192.168.10.2. And let's see if someone outside of the VLAN can talk to someone inside of the VLAN. And it's taking a mighty long time. And I'm going to say it's going to request a timeout. And no, you cannot talk to each other. Why? Because we did not add you into the group. All right. So we was able to talk to both PCs. We were able to talk to PCs outside of our virtual local area network, our VLANs, by using a router, a layer 3 technology. And this is exactly how you set up VLANs and inter-VLAN communication or routing, right? We call this, let me move this out the way because we already know that failed. We call this router on a stick, right? A router on a stick. All right, this is set up and it's to route traffic between different VLANs. All right, now I hope this video helped you out with understanding how VLANs are configured, inter-VLAN routing is configured, and how we can test connectivity and setup. If you have any questions about any of this or want me to go into detail on any of the topics that we discussed, please, please, please write your questions in the comments below. I will be glad to make a separate video or host another class that details that. Until then, keep learning and stay curious.